Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. This week is Mental Health Awareness Week, a yearly campaign focused on raising awareness about mental health, encouraging us to look after our well-being. So important. And today, Jane from Vital Nutrition is going to be talking to us about how diet and nutrition play a vital role on our cognition, our thoughts, feelings, and behaviours. My name's Andrew. I'm the supervisor for care and wellbeing and health services here at your charity, and I will be hosting your webinar today. Before I hand over to Jane, here's just a brief bit of background information about your charity, which if you have attended any of our other webinars, will be a nice refresher for you. And you may know that this year is the charity's 140th anniversary. And way back then, we were set up by civil servants to help other civil servants who were going through a difficult time. And that's an ethos that very much remains true today. Today, we're known as the Charity for Civil Servants, an independent charity whose mission is to support civil servants, past and present, when times are tough, and listening without judgment and offering practical, financial, and also emotional support. We're here to help you and anyone who's dependent upon you financially or dependent upon you for their care. And that is for the rest of your life. So even if you leave the civil service, it could be 20, 30 years later, you can still come back to us for support, which is quite a unique position to be in. Also, we're not a membership organisation. There's no sign up involved. Simply by you being a civil servant or having been means you're already part of our lifelong community. Before we start, a quick housekeeping reminder. If you don't mind, please use the Q&A function to submit comments and questions. And Jane and I will do our best to cover as many as possible at the end. And I know Jane will be asking you questions during the session as well, so please engage as normal. Before you post, you can choose to anonymise your questions if you prefer, and closed captions can be added by clicking the three dots at the top. But that's more than enough for me. Over to you, Jane. Great to see you.
Thank you, Andrew. Good to see you. Good to be back with everyone, and especially on this Mental Health Awareness Week. So let me just get my screen up and then, hang on. This is the bit, of course, where we've got to do the tech bit first. Hang on. Here we go. Right, feed your mind is our topic for today. So Mental Health Awareness Week, as Andrew said, happens every year. And the theme of this year's Mental Health Awareness Week, this May, is action. So it's you can see all of this if you go onto the Mental Health Foundation website, but they're talking about action for ourselves and for others. So today we are thinking about how we support our mental health, but more than that, we're thinking about our cognitive function, things like our memory, our acuity of thinking. We're really thinking about feeding and nourishing our brains and our bodies. We know that it's the small things that make all the difference when it comes to diet, nutrition, and well-being. So I hope today that you will take something away from today's session. It might be something that you've already implemented that you kind of forgot about and has fallen by the wayside, or it might be something brand new. Often these sessions, it is a refresher, it's a reminder, it's a little elbow in the ribs to go, right, what could you tweak? What could you change? And how could you optimize your health, diet, and daily habits to help support your health and well-being as best you can? So as always, and as Andrew has pointed out, we're going to use the Q&A section, do for a thing, and just as a question comes into your head, just pop it in there, and then we will do questions at the end. For those of you who haven't met me before, you've got lots and lots of videos on your online hub, and we tend to do a session once a month on different themes, and we're coming into our second year now. So what's really nice is you like to ask great questions, so keep them coming, because These sessions really are for you to help support your well-being. If you want to find out more about me, my links are on the screen and also on the handout that you can get from Andrew as well. That's his email address is in the Q&A for you to access that. So when it comes to our brains, there's lots that we can't have any control or we don't have any control over. We can't do much about our genetics, for example, but there's a lot that we can work around and optimize. And of course, I would put diet and nutrition at the top of that list, but control the controllables. Think about the things that you have got such scope to support your mental health and well-being with. So think about your diet and nutrition, and we're going to take a deep dive into that today. Physical activity, we know that that has a big impact on our cognitive function and our mental health. Cognitive challenges and social engagement, smoking, alcohol, obesity, and hypertension. You might have heard the news this morning to say that people who engage in the arts, which is really widespread, have better health outcomes in terms, they were talking about aging and they were talking about mental health. So all of these little things that we sometimes think are a bit insignificant all add up to help us feel and function at our very best. So we're going to look at some of the things that are evidence-based strategies and evidence-based ideas to help feed our mind. So let's start with the bad word, fat. For so many years, we have been avoiding fat, staying away from fat, going for low-fat diets, and in my opinion, to the detriment of our health. So think about your good fats, your essential fats, and what essential fat actually means. Anything that is a nutrient that is essential to the body, anything from vitamin C to iron to B12 to omega-3 fats, are nutrients that we have to get through our diet. We can't make them in our bodies. We've got to have a slow and steady supply of these nutrients. So the essential fats in our diet, you know this, are omega-3 and omega-6. And while both of those are important, one of them we tend to be a little lower in than the other, and that's omega-3. And the reason for that is because omega-6 is found in sunflower oil. And sunflower oil is used in a lot of foods because it's relatively cheap. And, you know, if you buy things like biscuits or bread or crisps, not necessarily the healthy stuff, but you're going to get some sunflower oil and some omega-3 there. Also, we get a lot of omega-6 from nuts and seeds and nut butters, for example. But omega-3 can be a little harder to come by, and we're not so focused on that. Yet that's the one that is super important for our brain function. So for cognitive function, for memory, for mood, for clear thinking, for concentration, we've got to get that omega-3 fat into our diet somehow. The very best source of omega-3 fats are oily fish. So it's mackerel and sardines, herring, trout, anchovies, and salmon. I nearly forgot that one. So really focusing on getting your oily fish in your diet 2 to 3 times a week. And if you are concerned about your really feeding your brain, you want to optimize that, I would go 3 times rather than twice a week. Make sure that your fish comes from a sustainable source. So you'll see a little blue flag on there with a Marine Stewardship Council blue tick, and that shows that you're getting it from a sustainable source. If you don't eat oily fish, or if you are a vegetarian or vegan, you might consider supplements. We do get some omega-3 from vegetables and plants. So for example, chia seeds, flax seeds, and walnuts are an okay source of omega-3, but they have to be converted into DHA, which is the active fat that we need for our brain. And sometimes it can be a little bit tricky for us to convert that. So it's much better if we go to the DHA, go straight there, and then we don't have any issues with conversion. DHA, you can see from the slide, we find it in algae. I'm not suggesting you go out and start eating algae, but if you get an omega-3, a vegan omega-3 supplement that says vegan DHA, it will be from an algae source. And it means that you're getting that really lovely long chain omega-3, the one that is the most bioavailable, the one that's the most efficient, the one that we need for our neurotransmitters, and the one that is the most absorbable for your body, the most bioavailable. That's the way to think about it. So there's different reasons why we need healthy fats to support our brain. One of them is to do with neurotransmitters. So serotonin, dopamine, for example, every single neurotransmitter, they're a bit like hormones. So they're made up of amino acids and fatty acids, proteins and fats. So let's get the raw materials into our diet so that the body can make these really important substances. Also, the structure of the brain is also high fat, and every single membrane or every single cell in our body has got a beautiful, important membrane that sends waste products out and brings nutrients and useful things into the cell. And that cell needs the omega-3 fat for it to work really efficiently and effectively. So I think we need to up our game a little bit when it comes to the omega-3. Try different ways of cooking your fish as well. One of the ways that I encourage my clients to eat oily fish, especially those who are not that keen on the fish taste, is to use anchovies in cooking. It just adds a real depth of flavour. If you're doing something like a tomato sauce, a homemade tomato sauce, for example, cook some anchovies down into your olive oil and then add your 10 tomatoes and your garlic and your seasoning and your herbs and things, and that means you've got the anchovies and the oily fish in there without it tasting fishy, I promise. So let's see if we can get your omega-3 up just a little. As well as helping with cognitive function, there's also good evidence to show that diets higher in omega-3 fats really help with concentration and mood, especially low mood and anxiety. So there's a lot to be said for omega-3 and our brain. These delicate cells in our brain also need protection. And we know that when we have inflammation in the body, sometimes we have inflammation in the brain as well. And that can affect our mood and our reasoning and our focus and our concentration. So let's load our diet with as many antioxidants and polyphenols and those protective nutrients as we possibly can. Where do we get them? Plants. So the more plants you have in your diet, the better. So that's obviously things like fruit and vegetables. And the more colour and variety, the better, because the more broad spectrum you're getting in terms of your antioxidant nutrients. But we also find polyphenols in other plant foods, like herbs and spices. You might have heard of the importance of things like turmeric. But also rosemary has been shown to be really beneficial for concentration, and sometimes some of these studies have been done on, obviously on food, but also there's been some studies done on rosemary oil say in your office, or if you've got someone in your family who's maybe doing exams, burning rosemary oil in a little essential oil burner can be really nice for concentration and focus. But get it into your diet too. Really think about how you can add extra herbs, spices. Ginger, turmeric, chili, cinnamon, rosemary, thyme, parsley, anything that's a herb or spice is going to give you the advantage. Then think about nuts and seeds and make sure that they are well within date. If you're buying milled seeds, for example, things like milled flaxseed, which has some omega-3 in it, as well as some omega-6 and other antioxidants and minerals that we need for a healthy brain, then keep your milled seeds in the fridge, because once a seed has been milled, it makes it a little bit more vulnerable to damage. So just keep those bags of the milled flaxseed, for example, in the fridge. Keep them fresh for longer. And then, of course, we've got whole grains. So they contain things like vitamin E and other polyphenols and antioxidants that are important for brain health. So get as many different plants into your diet as you possibly can. Think colour, eat a rainbow, think variety. Dried, fresh or frozen herbs and spices are just as good as each other. So we've looked at half the neurotransmitter building block, and that was the fatty acids, especially the omega-3. The other half of the equation are amino acids. And we know that amino acids are important for certain amino acids are important as the building blocks for serotonin and dopamine. And these are things like tryptophan and tyrosine. These nutrients, these individual amino acids, are really widespread in food. So as long as we're getting a variety of protein-based foods, you are sure to get a decent amount of the tryptophan and the tyrosine, those building blocks for serotonin, which keeps us calm and focused and improve mood, and dopamine, which helps with our motivation, our concentration, and our focus, our get up and go as well. It's really important for. Just a side note around that is that dopamine, sometimes people think about if you've got Parkinson's in your family, probably that's where your head is going with dopamine. I have Parkinson's, my dad has Parkinson's, so it's always something that's forefront of my mind. But think about dopamine as being your focus and your concentration and your motivation neurotransmitter, and the serotonin as being the calming. They have similar effects, but they are quite distinct from each other. So build enough protein into your diet. We need a slow and steady supply of protein throughout the day. We can't store it, so we need to make sure that we're ticking the protein box at breakfast, at lunch, and at dinner. And a side effect of having enough protein is that you will feel fuller for longer, but you'll really notice a difference in your focus and your concentration and your attention. So it makes such a difference to helping support not just our body energy, but also our brain energy. So your protein could either be animal-based or plant-based. It could be meat and fish and chicken. Dairy products like natural yogurt and cottage cheese are particularly high in protein, so is milk. Or plant-based would be things like nuts and seeds, beans and lentils, nut butters, tofu, for example. Mix it up, get a variety, and remember, it's not just about the protein. So the best way to get your protein into your diet is through food. Supplements have their place, but I think if we can really focus on optimizing what food we've got on our plate, then we don't always need to use supplements necessarily. One of the baddies when it comes to our cognitive function, our mood, our memory, our focus and concentration is sugar, and we love it. So think about this from a couple of different angles. First of all, a high sugar diet drives neuroinflammation, inflammation in the brain, and that really affects our thinking and our mood. So if we can gradually take sugar out of our diet, we notice such a difference. Also, when our blood sugar levels are more balanced and we're not on the roller coaster that you've heard me talk about before, not getting that spike in blood sugar and then the crash, our memory is better, our focus is better, our concentration is better. We tend to have better mood and less anxiety. When our blood sugar levels drop, the body responds to that by releasing more adrenaline. So take a load off by reducing your sugar. Take a load off your brain, take a load of stress. Really think about how you can get the sugar reduced in your diet. And it could be simple to start with. So it might be just checking out your breakfast cereal. How much sugar is there per 100 grams? You're always aiming for 5 grams per 100 or less. Maybe you want to swap out your milk chocolate to dark chocolate. Maybe you want to limit your sweet treats to weekends or every other day. But just think about how you could ease yourself off the blood sugar roller coaster. There's also there's increasing evidence to show that a high sugar diet increases our risk of dementia. And I think that's, especially if you have a family history of dementia, that is something that would be forefront, I guess, of your mind. I was talking to someone recently. Someone I went to school with, actually, and I haven't seen him for a long time. And he was telling me all about how he had changed his diet because he had a recent diagnosis of anxiety. And he said that within, I think he said 4 weeks, I was going to say 6 weeks, within 4 weeks, he noticed a real difference. And he said, more than that, my partner has noticed a difference as well. Sometimes we don't necessarily kind of see the difference, but those around us, those nearest and dearest, really do. So how can you reduce your sugar intake? One of the things that can be really beneficial here is keeping a food diary, even just for 2 or 3 days, and notice, when are you looking for the sugar And why are you looking for the sugar? Are you hungry or are you craving? Are you hangry or are you bored, or what is the reason behind it? And see what you can do instead. By now, most of us know the direct link between our gut and our brain. So by looking after our good gut bacteria, by making sure that our digestive system is happy, we are directly supporting neurotransmitter function. And again, this is really well evidenced now. And the more that we learn about the gut microbiome and the function of those beneficial probiotic bacteria, the more interesting it gets. So there's different ways that we can feed these gut bacteria to help our brain. One is to make sure that we've got some probiotic foods in our diet most days. Sometimes the food will tell you that it's a probiotic food and sometimes it doesn't. So if you pick up a yogurt and it says bio, live, or probiotic, you know that you're ticking that box. Aim to go for a natural or a Greek yogurt so that you're not adding on to the sugar load there. If you're in the while you're in the yogurt, I was going to say the sugar aisle, while you're in the yogurt aisle, have a look out for kefir. Kefir is a fermented milk drink, and you can also get a dairy-free version of this as well. You can get an oat kefir or a coconut kefir. And that is a really nice thing to add into your diet. You can either have it as a drink or you can stir it in with your breakfast or use it in smoothies, for example, but it's teeming with your good bacteria. You'll also find kombucha, which is fermented tea and green tea. And that is a really nice alternative to sparkling drinks. Things like sauerkraut, kimchi, these fermented pickled vegetables are a really good powerhouse of probiotics. So are you getting some probiotic foods into your diet? And the second part of this, are you looking after them once they've set up home there? So the way that we look after our gut microbiome is a similar way that we look after ourselves. They like and thrive on the nutrients that are important for us, fiber and polyphenols. So thinking back to those antioxidants and the importance of those for our brain health and to reduce that neuroinflammation, those same polyphenols, beautiful, colourful, vibrant, antioxidant-rich foods, the fruits and vegetables, beans and lentils, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices, and whole grains all contribute to giving us these plant chemicals that are so important for making sure that our gut microbiome is happy and healthy and well balanced, that we've got a good diversity of bacteria there to support production and balance of neurotransmitters. And then fiber. Let's ease a little more fiber onto our plate. It does two things. It feeds the beneficial bacteria and it helps slow down our sugar release. So by doing both those things, we're helping to feed our mind and fuel our brain. So can you get a little bit more fiber into your diet? Could you go for brown rice instead of white? Could you choose wholemeal pasta? Could you go for things like oat cakes instead of cream crackers? Notice how you can, where you could make a couple of switches. Could you go for a higher fiber breakfast, for example? Could you add more beans and lentils or hummus onto your plate? Could you bring some frozen peas in or edamame beans? These are really great ways to add more fiber in a really easy way. The one thing I would say about that is do it slowly, because while you're feeding the good bacteria, they can complain a little bit and they can produce lots of gas as a result. So increase fiber slowly, 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 and your body and brain will thank you for it. There's a lot of talk and research into intermittent fasting for brain health, for focus and concentration. And part of the reason why, so part of the reason for the benefits of intermittent fasting is that when we fast overnight, we produce ketones, and ketones are good fuel for our brain. But we don't need to do extended fasts to have benefits of producing ketones. If we eat, move our eating window to about 12 to 10 hours, so with a overnight fast of 12 to 14 hours, we will be producing ketones come the morning. The problem is that we are a nation of grazers. So we like to have breakfast and then a snack and then lunch and then another snack or two and then dinner and then supper. If we can cut the snacks out and aim to have 3 meals in our 10 to 12 hour zone, that is much better for our brain. So it gives you that slow, steady release, but it also allows your body to do the cleanup process overnight, which is called autophagy, and you will get some ketone production come morning as well. So could you nudge your eating window so that, say, for example, if your breakfast is around 8, could you finish eating by 8 o'clock at night? Or even a little earlier? Could you make it 7 o'clock? What works for one person will not practically work for another. So you've got to work out your ideal eating window, but try not to graze all day. And also, it's best not to eat too close to bedtime. So lots of people interpret this as skipping breakfast and not eating until lunchtime. Remember, our brain likes a slow, steady supply rather than a complete kind of starvation in terms of blood sugar balance. So eat breakfast, 4 or 5 hours later have lunch, 4 or 5 hours later have dinner, and see how that works for you. But you want to aim to break your fast. Otherwise, that can increase blood sugar, can increase anxiety, and has an impact on focus in the afternoon. I want to share with you some foods that have been shown to help feed our brain, feed our mind, and that's what today's session is all about. So I'm going to explain why I've included each of these, and then I want you to work out how many of, I think there's 12 on my screen, how many of these foods you can tick that you eat really regularly. So the first 3 are avocados, eggs, and oily fish. So let me explain myself. Avocados are really rich in monounsaturated fats. They're packed full of fiber and they're full of vitamin E. They are lovely for our brain. They're also a really nice source of tryptophan, which is the serotonin precursor. So it helps to keep us calm and focused and improve mood. Eggs are on the menu when it comes to brain health. And apart from being a decent enough source of protein, they are also a magnificent source of something called choline. And it's estimated that 90% of the population have a diet low in choline. So we find it in egg. The very, very best sources of choline are eggs and liver. Most people don't eat liver anymore. And to get sufficient protein in our diet, we would need to be eating 5 eggs a day. It's quite a lot, isn't it? So choline belongs to the B vitamins. And it is important for the function of our cell membrane. So along with that beautiful omega-3 fat choline is super important too. But it does more than that. Choline is what's called a methyl donor. So it switches things on and off in our body. Hormones, neurotransmitters, enzymes. And it also is one of the most important nutrients for our nervous system and our brain. So pack in more choline. Get more eggs into your diet. There are other sources of choline, but eggs and liver are the best source. You can also use a nutritional supplement of lecithin, which is often used as it's a vegetarian source. It comes from soya or sunflower, and it's often used for liver and gallbladder support, but it's giving you choline, which is helping brain function too. And then our beautiful omega-3 rich oily fish. So remember, it could be salmon, could be mackerel, herring, trout, or sardines. Are you getting that in your diet 3 times a week? And by the way, this photograph has got rosemary on there too. So if you bake your fish with rosemary, you get an extra brownie point there. Remember, it's the one that's good for our brain. Then we've got dark green leafy vegetables. They are an important source of folate. And folate, like the choline that we find in eggs, is a really important methyl donor. So again, switching those neurotransmitters on and off, and the hormones and the enzymes and all the important bits and pieces in our body. So folate folate-rich, dark green leafy vegetables in our diet every single day. 2 portions a day, if you could squeeze it in. And one of the ways that I like to incorporate more greens into my diet is, yes, steamed veggies, of course, but if you've got some herbs, you know those little bags of herbs you get from the supermarket, put it into your NutriBullet or your blender or your food processor with some olive oil, a little bit of lemon juice or a good vinegar like a cider or a white wine vinegar, a spoonful of mustard, and then blitz it up and you'll make this beautiful green sauce that is a fantastic source of folate, but also a great source of magnesium, which is key for our mind as well. What else was I going to tell you about greens? Oh yeah, if you're steaming your green vegetables, it's a good idea to put a drizzle of olive oil over the top, and then you'll get better absorption of the polyphenols from those greens. It also tastes really nice, which is important too. Red meat. I know that if you are vegetarian or vegan, this will not be part of your dozen brain foods, but red meat often gets a bad rap. But if you get lean red meat into your diet, it's a brilliant source of protein, zinc, which is one of the important nutrients for perception and for concentration and our brain, and of course iron, which is really important for circulation throughout our body, blood flow to the brain, and energy production. And then olives and olive oil. They are packed full of those polyphenols, and actually they're also quite a good source of fiber. You need to eat quite a lot of your olives for that, but they have also been shown to help support a healthy gut microbiome because of the polyphenols there. We know how good the Mediterranean diet is for our health and well-being, so opt for the olive oil when you can. Next up, we've got nuts and seeds, so get a variety in there and have a little handful every day. Try and veer more towards the omega-3 nuts and seeds, so things like walnuts, chia seeds, and flax seeds, but incorporate stuff like your almonds, your pecans, pumpkin seeds, and sunflower seeds here too. Brazil nuts, hazelnuts, any that you like, mix it up so you're getting a really nice profile and variety of nutrients. Not only do they contain healthy fats, but they also have got lots of additional nutrients like the polyphenols, like the fiber, like zinc, selenium, vitamin E, calcium, and more that we need for a healthy brain. Berries are very low sugar, but they're very high antioxidants, fresh or frozen. And we hopefully will be coming into berry season in a few weeks' time. So strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, blackcurrants, blackberries, anything at all. Think about that beautiful, vibrant color on your plate. And then we've got some fermented foods. So it might not be that sauerkraut is your food of choice, but do you get some fermented foods into your diet regularly? Are you feeding, making sure that you've got a healthy population of those beneficial probiotic bacteria? And our last three, chocolate's got to be on the list. So the really dark chocolate can help circulation, and it's also good for again that methylation and that sort of circulation of nutrients. So that's my good enough excuse to eat chocolate. I think get the 85% if you can manage that. The more bitter your chocolate is, actually, the better. Green tea is a lovely source of antioxidants, but the reason I put it on here is because it also contains something called L-theanine. And L-theanine is a really interesting nutrient. It is, along with a herb called lemon balm, it's been shown to improve concentration and focus. So maybe in the afternoon, instead of having a tea or coffee, swap to a green tea. Even better if you can get yourself some lemon balm there as well. And hydration. When we are dehydrated, we are fatigued. And it's not just body fatigue, it's also brain fatigue. So are you well hydrated and drinking enough water? So just a reminder what our dozen foods were: avocado, eggs, oily fish, dark green leafy vegetables, red meat, olives and olive oil, nuts and seeds, berries, fermented vegetables, chocolate, green tea, and keeping well hydrated. So I wonder how many you got out of your out of the 12. Let me just come out of this. Hang on. I'm going to come back in. Let me see. I'm going to come back into the chat now, and we've got about 20 minutes or so for Q&A, so good stuff. So if you want to put your number into the chat, it'd be interesting to know how many of the 12 you can include regularly. And I'm going to go through. You've got loads of questions in here, which is brilliant. Right, let me see. First question is, should you soak chia seeds, and what are your thoughts on green powders, e.g. moringa powder? So chia seeds, if we soak them, you get a gel, and that gel is soluble fiber, and what it does is it slows down sugar release, it helps feed beneficial bacteria, and it has a real balancing effect on things like cholesterol. But you don't necessarily need to soak your chia. As long as you're well hydrated, as long as you've got liquid with a meal, your body will do that anyway, naturally. So you don't necessarily have to soak chia seeds. And should we grind flax seeds? It's better if you do grind flax seeds, because you'll get benefits in terms of there's plant chemicals in there called lignans that have very important hormone balancing effect on the body, but also you'll get much better levels of things like your zinc and your selenium and all the nutrients that are held inside the flaxseed. Otherwise, the flaxseed go out of our body the same way as they came in, and we're not getting any nutritional benefit really. So yes, it's better if it's milled or ground. Can protein drinks help as a top-up? I try to focus on fresh proteins, but sometimes I fall a little short, so I use a clear whey protein. Yeah, we can definitely use protein supplements as a little bit of a top-up. I would just be, savvy about reading your labels. So check out the ingredients list. Make sure that it is just whey protein that you've got in there, or if you've got plant-based protein, you'll find things like pea protein and pumpkin seed and all sorts. So just make sure that you recognize everything there as a real ingredient. We can get ultra-processed foods, and we can also get ultra-processed supplements, so just be careful about that one. But yeah, you can absolutely use it as a top-up. Is sourdough good for you compared to normal bread? Is it worth the extra expense? Okay, good question. So there's such a range in what is called sourdough. It is not a protected term, but sourdough bread is made by a fermentation process, and it usually takes 36 hours plus to make a loaf of sourdough. You'll know that if you've ever tried making it yourself. In that fermentation process, some things happen. And one of the things is the gluten gets broken down a little bit, not that it becomes gluten-free, it just becomes a little easier for us to digest. And the fermentation process also reduces the glycemic index, so it doesn't spike and crash our blood sugar as much. So it tends to be easier in our digestive system. You'll also see that good sourdough, proper, like what sourdough should be, a proper loaf of sourdough, will only contain flour, salt, and water. That is it. Sometimes you'll have seeds and things like that in there. But if you buy a loaf that says sourdough on the label, like a sliced pan loaf, that will have flour improvers, and it might have sourdough flavouring. So I know what you're talking about here. I know you're talking about the proper, yes, it is expensive, but it's because it's made over a longer period of time. It's because it's an artisan product. It is worth the extra expense. The other bread that is good or a bit better for us is rye bread, because it's nice slow release. It's nice and high in fiber. So just read your ingredients when you're buying your bread. What is your take on minimizing orange colored fruit and increasing green fruit to control sugar intake? What examples of low sugar other than green apple? Okay. We definitely should not minimize orange fruit. It's not, while greens are really important for magnesium and folate and also beta carotene and other antioxidants, it's about getting variety and getting a rainbow on our plate. So orange fruit, like oranges, apricots, peaches, I can't think of any other orange colored fruit and veg, some melons, are a really important source of beta carotene, which is a key antioxidant. So please don't exclude any colour from your diet when it comes to fruit and vegetables. Make sure you're eating a rainbow. You know, we teach kids to do that now, and the more variety of colour and aroma and flavour that we have in our diet, the better our polyphenol and antioxidant intake. So no, definitely don't reduce your orange coloured fruit. What are examples of low sugar fruit other than the green apple? So think about where your fruit grows. Also think about this in context. So eating a banana is lower sugar fruit than eating a biscuit or a chocolate bar. And there's loads of fibre in it. So the fibre slows down the sugar release. So it's not so spiky and such a crash in blood sugar. But fruit that grows in a tropical climate does tend to be higher sugar than fruit that grows in our climate. So apples, pears, plums, berries, cherries, kiwis, oranges even, they all grow in a fairly temperate climate, not a tropical climate, and they tend to be lower in sugar. I would say get the variety in. That's really important. And look at other ways of reducing your sugar rather than cutting back on fruit. Go more vegetables than fruit, but don't exclude fruit. Does milk in your tea, even a wee bit, break your fast? Yes, sorry, it does. So anything that's a calorie is going to break your fast. Does not grazing include snacking and vegetables? I try to compromise by snacking and vegetable sticks. Yeah, it does. So anything that we eat, so even it's so brilliant to snack on vegetables. So brilliant because you're getting more antioxidants, more fiber, more nutrients, really low calorie, but you get really good bang for your buck with snacking on vegetables. So I do not want to discourage you from doing that. But yes, that does include your grazing. Yeah. What are your thoughts on smoothies? Should we keep the structure of the fruit and eat whole rather than blend all together? So when we blitz and blend, we increase the glycemic index of that fruit. But there's things that we can do to reduce the glycemic index. So hold that thought. So we put things into our blender or into our NutriBullet. We might put in, like, I don't know, a banana and some berries and something else. Blitz it all up. So we've got lots of fruit there, but we've also broken the cell, broken the fiber, and it means that it's a little more fast release. So it's better to have less fruit in there, but pair it with some protein. So get some yogurt and milk into your smoothie rather than basing it on a fruit juice. And then you're reducing the sugar, number one, but you're also bringing in the protein that slows down the sugar release. Does that make sense? What are your thoughts on frozen berries? Wonderful, fantastic, brilliant. Frozen fruit or vegetables definitely gets a tick around here. So yeah, really good and much better value than the fruit, than the fresh stuff. Let me see. Hang on, I want to make sure I'm not missing any. Here we go. 10. You're doing very well. With the genius food, how often should we be trying to eat them? Every day seems ambitious. Every day would be amazing if you could have all of those. But for example, things like your red meat a couple of times, definitely your olive oil every day, definitely your greens every day, definitely your berries every day, nuts and seeds every day, your green tea every day. These things can just be really easily and readily incorporated into our diet. And it's about bringing variety and really thinking about, and I know that I give you 12 foods. I could give you another 12 and another 12 and another 12, but these are the ones that have got good evidence behind them. We know about the nutrients, but it's not just solely sticking to those. It's really thinking about variety is super important. Do you have any tips on sourcing fermented vegetables? I've heard most in jars and shelves don't have live bacteria. Okay, so I also questioned this at a lecture that I was at, and the lecture was about IBS, so it's different, but the same kind of. And there's quite a big study that I can't put my hand on just right now, but there was quite a big study with IBS and jars of fermented veg, jars of sauerkraut and the fresh sauerkraut. And actually what that study showed is that both benefited people with IBS. So is it to do with the lactic acid? Is it to do with the probiotic? Is it to do with the fiber? It's probably a little bit of all of that. So if something is in in a jar on a shelf, it will have been pasteurized. It will say that it's been pasteurized, and it will have less of the live bacteria, but there's still lots and lots and lots of benefits. I'd love to have a poster to put up in the kitchen listing those 12 foods, drinks, the family can see what is good for them and why. I currently take 9 or 10 out of the 12. Wonderful, Gillian. Should you grind sesame seeds as well? Although no, you did not mention them in any health benefits. So your sesame seeds are great. They're an amazing source of calcium, and they fit in with the nuts and seeds actually. But generally, sesame seeds, we tend to chew them. It's important as well. We tend to chew them. We can break them down much easier than flax seeds. And tahini is a beautiful source, beautiful thing to include in our diet, and that's milled or ground sesame seeds. So yeah, keep it in, and you don't have to grind them as long as you chew well. I've been avoiding caffeine since Christmas. Is there a lot of caffeine in dark chocolate and green tea? I also started a subscription to a local honey provider, but I'm starting to think maybe I'm having way too much of it a day. What would you recommend, like per day, like 3 teaspoons? Okay, so let's address the caffeine question first. There is caffeine in dark chocolate. There is caffeine in green tea. So green tea, the theanine that I was telling you about, has a relaxing effect, and that minimizes the stimulant effect of the caffeine in green tea. But yes, it still contains caffeine. And yes, there is still caffeine in dark chocolate. So you might want to think about an alternative if you're avoiding caffeine completely. Oh, the sugar thing. Yes, so the World Health Organization recommend that we have no more than 24 grams of sugar a day, which is the equivalent of 6 teaspoonfuls of sugar. That would be included in things like your fruit and other foods that you've got in your diet. I would say 3 teaspoonfuls is a bit much of your honey, so maybe go for about 1 teaspoonful a day. It's really important to support honey producers and our beekeepers. But remember that your honey is still sugar, so less is more. Should we be mindful of ocean pollution and microplastics when increasing our fish intake? Yes, absolutely, we should be. This is a really big question, a really important question, and that is why I give alternatives to fish like the DHA, the vegetarian vegan version, the algae, as an alternative. Yeah, it's environmentally, it is not wonderful. Thank you for the comment. On around 8 or 9 of the foods will work on getting up to 9 or 10, then carry on. Brilliant. What food would you advise to eat more of when you're going through the menopause to help you with hot flushes and tiredness? Should you take vitamins to help? There's lots. I think we did a session about menopause you might find on the hub, but there's lots of things that you can help here. So looking, I'm going to give you 3 things. We have an increased need for protein. We can become more sensitive to sugar, and caffeine can certainly contribute to hot flushes. So, but check out the hub, because I think there's a session on there, either about female balance or the menopause. I specialize in perimenopause, so you can also come into my website and you'll find lots of stuff there too. Great questions as always. Let me see now. Can you talk through benefits of caffeine and how to balance positives and negatives for a tea coffee lover? Okay, the effects of those benefits. So caffeine is a stimulant, and if we have too much caffeine, it can make us feel jittery and anxious, and it can affect our sleep. Also, in response to that previous question, for women at menopause, it's been shown that caffeine can increase hot flushes. I know that today is not about that, but just as a side. So remember also that caffeine, because it's a stimulant, it can also affect our sleep. So we want to ideally keep our caffeine to earlier in the day. It can take, this is kind of goes back to our genetics, but genetically we are either slow or fast metabolizers of caffeine. So for some people, caffeine can stay in our system, can act really quickly, make us feel, give us that kind of spiky energy, and it also can stay in our system for a really long time. So even if you have a cup of coffee after lunch, that may affect your sleep. So it's really thinking about it in terms of anxiety and stress and sleep. So just less is more when it comes to the caffeine. So good quality, really enjoy it and have less of it. I struggle with diet. I have type 2 diabetes, acid reflux and IBS. Don't eat veg regularly. I do eat dark chocolate. I got chia seeds to add to porridge and told to be careful with the amount I was having. Was also was also today, I think maybe told that bran flakes with banana was not a good breakfast. I'm at a loss what to eat. Okay, start small. Sometimes when you come, hopefully not when you come by sessions, but sometimes the whole news around diet, nutrition, what we should and what we shouldn't eat can be really overwhelming. Start small. So really think about slowly increasing those vegetables. Try experimenting with different types. In terms of the chia seeds, reflux. Chia seeds, a spoonful a day is absolutely fine. I can't really comment. I don't know why someone has told you the amount. Yeah, you don't want a bucket of them, but a spoonful every day is absolutely fine. So just start really small. Try things like soup, try things like your steamed vegetables, try cooking meals with vegetables in them. So for example, if you are making something like a spaghetti bolognese, why not put some leek in there or put some grated carrot into it and just start to experiment really, really slowly. The note about bran flakes and banana, you're getting fiber there, but you're also getting quite a lot of sugar. You might be better if you go for things like oats at breakfast, maybe something like overnight oats or porridge or something like that. So, but start really small and do things that are within your control. Okay. For someone like me who have suffered gout twice in the past 2 years, I was told to avoid some of this sugary fruit and red meat. What can you recommend instead? I would not, well, your fruit I would keep in because you want those antioxidants. So things like berries, wonderful. Things like apples and pears. Maybe instead of your red meat, go for white meats like chicken and turkey and white fish, for example. So you're getting really nice protein. Okay. I am going to put in my website in just a second. Love some tips to prepare veggie vegan breakfast in advance. Right, let's just go to, hang on. Your questions are absolutely brilliant. Now, just into the chat, but if you go into my website and go to blog, you can find loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of stuff in there. So it's specifically about menopause. You can put it in the search up here. You can also find links to my books there, and also lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of recipes. So in reply to the question about the vegetarian or vegan breakfast you can prepare in advance, there's a really good granola recipe there. There's a beautiful overnight carrot cake, overnight oats there. Lots and lots of ideas. So check all of that out. So I'm going to share that website in, oh, hang on, I think I'm going to do that in the chat. Okay. Yeah, I think that's in. So I think I answered all those. Hopefully you have enjoyed today's session. Hopefully you got something out of it. But just gauging by some of the questions, please do not feel overwhelmed. You are already doing really good things, and you've already got lots of good habits in your diet. So build on those and get knowledgeable about what works for you in terms of your diet and your nutrition. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to hand back to Andrew.
Thank you very much, Jane. You've completely transformed my diet from attending these sessions. I found myself going through cupboards, getting my flax milled seed in the fridge, looking through all my berries, snacking at the same time. So
Love it.
thank you. Thank you very much. Um, and you've flown through all the questions as well. So, and you put your website in there as well. Brilliant. Just to finish off today's session, I just want to highlight through sharing what's coming next. So luckily for us, Jane will be back in just a few weeks, the 9th of June, because it is Carers Week starting then. So we've got some more sessions planned. So if you haven't already, please register for those. There's another link to Jane's website there. And just lastly, if you want to follow your charity, it's a great way to find out what's going on, hear about sessions like today. Scan that QR code and that will take you to the charity's LinkedIn page. But otherwise, thanks again, Jane. That was amazing. Thank you to everyone who's engaged throughout, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a few weeks' time.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Oh. Shall I end the event, Andrew?